Hello, my name is Joseph Salama. I am, oh man, I did this wrong. All right, let's do this again.
Should I look at the camera? I feel like I should.
Yeah, I'm supposed to introduce the voice first. All right, let's do this again. Interview with Michelle Nance, take 2. Hello, and welcome to The Voice. My name is Joseph Salama, and I'm an editor here, and I'm here today with Michelle Nance, potential candidate, well, no, you are a candidate for Director of Communications with Our Future. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just leap right into it.
Okay.
So the first question we have for you is that this is a completely new position. It was created this year. It's never been really done before. So what do you believe are important characteristics for this position? You were on the board that did create it, so just to hear your voice on it.
Yeah, I would just say that there are 3 things I think we really should be looking at. This position is a blank slate right now, so there isn't any precedent for what this position should be. First of all, I think that the person in this position should have a lot of ideas for how to proactively outreach to students. Because students aren't just going to come running to ASUW, the UW student government. They're not going to come running to us unless we go out and show them how we are relevant for students. We need to have a bunch of ideas for how to actually show to students that we are relevant and that we are enriching every student's life and we are impacting every student here on this campus. I have a bunch of different ideas. I encourage you to look at my platform, but a couple of ideas I have are having things like monthly outings where ASUW Board of Directors members would go out like to the quad or out to Red Square and be out there and actually go out and proactively talk to students. So when we were campaigning, we started doing this, and the people on my ticket we had balloons, and we went around to the quad, and people just started flocking to us because they wanted a balloon. Yeah. And the thing is, if you go out somewhere like to the quad or Red Square with balloons or otter pops or things like that students really want, they'll come to you, and then it really gives you a good chance to ask them questions about issues that are relevant to them. And you're able to share with them about ASUW and how it really does impact every student. So I think it's important that the Director of Communications has a lot of ideas for how to proactively reach out to students. And I think that's really important. And I have a bunch of other ideas, but I would encourage you to look at my platform because I don't want to take all the time for this question. And the second thing I think that's really important is that you need to have experience in ASUW. Because if you're going to be representing ASUW to the media, you need to have a general idea of what ASUW actually does. I'm the only person who's actually running in this election with practically 2 years of experience on the board. This year I serve as the Senate Vice Chair, so I represent the Student Senate, the ASUW Student Senate on the board. Last year I wasn't able to talk really. I was the administrative assistant to the board of directors, so I didn't play an active role in the board, but I was there at every single meeting. I took the minutes for those meetings, and I remember a lot of things that happened last year, and those experiences being on the board last year, and I think that this year as well, is really going to help me look at ASUW in a strategic way, be able to see how it has developed over the past few years. And so I think that the experience on the board is giving me a look into the entire association because different entities such as the off-campus housing affairs, the experimental college, all the different entities and parts of ASUW come to the board of directors to give them updates. So I have a real understanding of how the entire association works. And I think that's really important for the Director of Communications so that they can communicate that when people ask what's going on with ASUW. And the third thing that I think is really important for this position is that you have experience advocating for students and standing up for them. Because you're not just the one coming up with ideas behind the scenes, and I think that's really important, and I definitely have a bunch of ideas for how to do that and have public relations strategies. But I think you also are going to be a main spokesperson when talking to the Daily and other news sources. So this year I've spent a lot of time going down to Olympia. I've testified in front of committees. I've talked many times to legislators. I really know what it takes to stand up in front of legislators and share with them the student voice. And I think that's really important. You need to have someone who has strong public speaking skills. I think I have those. And also this year as the Senate Vice Chair, I represented the Student Senate on the Board of Directors. So I've really played that role of liaison, of speaking up for the student voice from Senate to the Board of Directors. And I think that really shows I have a lot of experience in those areas. And I think that they play a critical role in deciding who will be the Director of Communications.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Director of Communications is now the liaison, or will be the liaison to between ASUW and media sources such as the Daily. Yep. Specifically with the Daily, what agenda items do you wish to accomplish with our primary media source on campus if elected?
I think it's a great question because so many students read the Daily, or at least I hope they do, and I think it's a great way for them to learn about different campus issues. I've actually already talked to the ASUW and Graduate Professional Student Senate beat reporter, Sarah Schleppe. I've talked to her about what her ideas are and how ASUW can outreach more to the Daily and make things easier for them, because I want to make it easy for them to cover stories about us. I think it's so important that ASUW is covered by the Daily, because that's one of the main ways that people learn about ASUW, and I think we really need to continue that. One thing I think is so crucial is that we make sure that that the Daily is covering stories that are relevant to students, showing how ASUW is relevant to every student, how it impacts all students. Like, that's going to be a theme that you're going to hear from me. But I think that when communicating to students, they're not going to care about ASUW unless you show them that ASUW really does matter, and if it's going to matter to them in a personal way. So I think it's so crucial that we make sure that the stories we cover, that the Daily covers, are going to be really relevant and showing students what they can do and how they're going to be affected. I think those two things are really important. And I'd want to make sure that I would take a proactive role in sending press releases to the Daily and making sure that I don't just leave it up to them to cover whatever they're interested in, but that I actually take that proactive stance and bring up these issues to them and say, oh, we're going to have this event coming up next week. It's really important for all students. Can you please cover this in an article? So I think that's really important. Another thing I've actually thought about, and I talked to Sarah about this, is having a column in the Daily that would just be something that people from the ASUW could write weekly in it. And it's something I know that a lot of candidates in the past for other positions have brought up. But I talked to her, and she said that she's not sure if it would actually work, but she said that it would be something that we could definitely work on. They thought about doing it this year, but the Daily decided not to do it because they wanted to have more of an objective look at ASUW, so coming from their own news reporters instead of people from inside ASUW. But I would definitely want to ask them about that again, because I think it would be a really good way to outreach to students. Because if they see something from like the ASUW president in the Daily, I think that is really different than like just seeing a quotation from like Madeline McKenna. Seeing that actual like article that was written by her, I think that would really show to students that people in their student government care enough about them to take the time to write those things, to send them directly to students. So I don't know if that would work, and I'm not going to make any promises with that because it completely depends on my communication with the Daily and what they think. But that's something I'm definitely looking into, and I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have time for one more question. So let me ask this one here. The Director of Communications is charged with creating the annual report for ASUW. In your mind, what is the annual report? What information does it need to contain, and how would you go about creating it?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm so excited that we are starting this process this year. It's the first time that ASUW has ever had an annual report, and I think that is such an important part, because what an annual report is, in my mind, and I've taken a lot of business classes, and this is what it normally means for most businesses, is it goes through the entire year and shows the performance of that entire company, shows the results, and it will analyze those results in comparison to the strategic goals of the association. So I think what's really important is that the annual report process starts at the beginning of the year, actually, is when you come up with those strategic goals that you want to see for the entire association. So you have that long-term planning right away. So at the beginning of the year, the board of directors will come up with those plans, what they want to see from their entire association by the end of the year. And then I think what's really important is that throughout that year, you keep track of all those different things that you are really looking towards and those strategic goals. And I think at the end of the year, it comes down to making sure that you communicate how those strategic goals played out in the rest of the year. I think it's so important to show those results, but I think you really need to stay away from just pure text. I know that so many students, so many people in general, you don't want to read a block of text about how ASUW has been doing. You need to have pictures, so making sure that you're taking a lot of pictures during the year to show them, make it visually appealing. Also numbers, those facts that really show to students that ASUW actually has been making a difference, or these number of volunteers have becoming involved, or this number of senators have joined this year. I think that's a really great way to show to students what the association has been doing. And I'd want to make sure that this annual report wouldn't just be going to students. I think it's really important that it does go to students, because students are who we're representing. They're who we're serving, and they need to know what we're doing. And that's why it's so important, because if they don't know what we're doing throughout the year, they have no way to base what we've been doing, and they don't have any way to decide who they think would be best for the next year. But I think it's so important that we also outreach to alumni, and that we use this annual report to send to the alumni so they can stay updated. I know that in 20 years when I'm outside of ASUW, I don't know what I'll be doing, but I will still be interested in ASUW. I want to hear what's been going on. And I think that there are so many different people who still care about ASUW, and they might provide donations, they might want to be getting involved. And that's an untapped resource I think that we're really going to be looking towards as an association. I know that we're thinking of creating an ASUW advancement coordinator, so they'd be in charge of working with the alumni. So if this position was created, and if I was elected to this position, I definitely want to talk to them, work with them on how to make this annual report both relevant for students and people outside of that, people who are alumni who have been involved with ASUW in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all we have time for.
Okay.
But just on behalf of the editors, the writers, and the viewers of the articles that we write, I just want to thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.